First, the woman is stripped. She's shaved of all her hair everywhere. And the witch picker uses a variety of calipers and sharp-pointed tools called picks to poke the woman's body, looking for desensitized areas all over and inside her body. The Malleus Maleficarum. Up to 200,000 women are murdered either by burning, hanging, beheading, or being broken on the rack. And millions of people have their lives changed forever, another triumph for faith and reason. Parenthetically, about 100 years later, the word prick was being used to refer to the male penis, and by some maidens of questionable morals used to call their boyfriends pricks, my prick. I have a suspicion the word is still used in the vernacular. In fact, I'm sure I've heard some of my own students using this during examination, and it confuses me because I'm married and I don't want to be anybody's boyfriend. I'm going to bypass the 17th century and say these people might be interested in Pascal and his wager. That's kind of an interesting issue. Just Pascal's math was faulty and his logic was funky, if you're interested in that. Let's move on to the present and see what happens. 1859, publication of Darwin's Origin of Species. 1870, Vatican I meets and declares victory. After almost 1900 years of uncertainty, they have invented a reasonometer to solve all disputes between faith and reason. It's called papal infallibility. In matters of faith, the Pope is infallible. He's got the 411 on all that. 1949, Man the Toolmaker is published by Kenneth Oakley, demonstrating that what separates humans from non-humans is the ability to make tools. It became a popular anthropological theory for a couple of decades. 1960, Jane Goodall discovers one of her chips named David Greybeard perched on a termite mound, fishing for insects with a branch he has stripped of its leaves, and he pokes it in, and he brings it up and eats termites. No more is man the only toolmaker. 1960, the number of people who believe in evolution has risen to 30%. 2000, the number of people who believe in evolution rises to 50%. 2006, Rational Animals, published, edited by Susan Hurley and Matthew Nuds. It is comprised of a series of essays by distinguished philosophers and scientists discussing research into animal behavior, demonstrating that rationality is no longer an exclusive ability of humans. It never was. Not only do humans have reason, but also chimpanzees and chickadees. In 2006, scientist Dr. Francis Collins, former director of the Human Genome Project, devout born-again Christian, publishes The Language of God, which is like selling like hotcakes as it points out how God reveals himself through nature. But even he has problem convincing his readers of one fact. He writes, the evidence for evolution is overwhelming. His readers don't like that. Why is evolution such a hard sell? I'm not sure everyone understands this, so I'm just going to take a little trope on it. It's not just, I don't want some ape as my grandfather. It's this. If evolution is true, then the Garden of Eden and the doctrine of original sin are at best myths. And if they are myths, and original sin is myths, there's no need for Christ to come back and save us. Finally, let's return to the question, is the suspension of reason rational? Yes, it's rational, but preposterous. Pre means before, posterous means after. It's going, is irrationality rational? It is an oxymoronic question in musician terms, but I'm a musician. The question is itself dissonant and out of tune. And the word for being out of tune literally is absurd. Absurd. So the question is absurd. Answers it. So what? Faith will continue to rule over reason. So where do we go from here? Another debate in 2 years? Do we have anything in common? Yeah. Let me raise the stakes. The greatest threat we face together, all of us, is that of religious orthodoxy, literally right thinking, especially in the form of radical religious fundamentalism. There are radical Muslims who would gladly destroy the whole world so that Allah could come, sort out the blessed, and condemn the heretics, infidels, which means unfaithful. And there are any number of radical evangelical Christians who feel that we are nearing the end of days and that Jesus will come back during their lifetime for the apocalypse. And over 200 are in the United States Congress, although we lost one recently, Mr. Foley. These folks are shaping your destiny and my destiny and the destiny of all our children. They are shaping policy on environment, energy, international affairs, and wars, and some of them think that the best way to hasten the apocalypse is by using up all the energy, increasing global warming, or even using nuclear war as a way to end the world so that Jesus come earlier and set things straight. If you remember James Watt under Reagan, one of the reasons he was let go was because one of his speeches says, trees, I'm not worried about trees. We cut them all down and Jesus will come. They're all excited about it. The 15 Left Behind novels by Tim LaHaye and Jerry Jenkins are now the 9th most popular book ever sold on Amazon.com, over 100 million copies. I end my presentation with the following questions. What do we do about radical evangelical left-behinders who are in Congress and don't care our concern about environment, energy, global warming, etc.? We can try to vote them out. What do we do about radical Muslims who seek our destruction? We can hope that we can work with moderate Muslims to help them assert control. Otherwise, there's only one rational solution. We have to kill them all before they kill us. Which is what we're trying right now. It doesn't seem to be working real well. But I think a more rational solution is for moderate Christians, Muslims, atheists, and other people of goodwill and open minds to begin working together to create a better world for everybody. By the way, Sir Isaac Newton predicted mathematically that Jesus won't come anytime before 2060, so we have time. About those people who are in Congress willing to really let things go because they think Jesus is going to come in a lifetime.
Well, I'm not aware that that's the right way to characterize their attitudes, but the more important issue is I can't defend them because I mentioned that rationality is wanting to know the truth and that there are different things besides rationality that can inform our beliefs. One of those things is culture. And evangelicalism has created its own culture with its own set of beliefs, its own set of orthodoxies, its own set of values and assumptions. And my contention would be, as a radical biblicist, that that needs to be subject to scrutiny and criticism and evaluation by a rational appraisal of what the Bible is actually teaching as compared to what their culture dictates to them is rational. And we don't have a lot of disagreement. Unfortunately, I don't know what kind of debate this is going to be, but I can't defend the history of Christianity or the doctrines of Christianity or the cultures that it's produced, because that's not my commitments. I mean, I'm not committed to loyally defend Christianity. My commitment is I believe the Bible is actually the truth, but we have to approach the Bible rationally and come to understand what it really means. And I think when we find out what it really means, a lot of what you have suggested is not rational and not moral. The Bible itself would say it's not rational, it's not moral.
Go ahead.
I don't know what to ask you.
You want to talk about erections?
It seems to me, let me just say this and you tell me whether this is true or not. I mean, I think we would be in agreement on that there is a way of understanding rationality that I think you were using when you were critiquing things that you thought were pretty odd and probably evil and immoral. I think you would also say they were irrational. Is that not true?
No.
Okay, yeah, expand on that.
No, because I think rationality, again, is a matter of consensus. And I'm not even sure it matters if I can line up, okay, everybody who thinks I won, raise your hands, and the Jack won, raise their hands. What would you come up with? Two consensus. Consensi? Consensuses. And so I would say, no, it's not irrational, it might be you. Does that make it so? No, I don't have my rationale with me. Ask the Pope. Because
Go ahead. Well, but you choose one over the other. I mean, in this split consensus that we have, you would side with one consensus over the other. Probably you'd probably side with yourself.
Very reasonable.
On what basis? If not reason, why?
I think it's a preponderance of evidence. I mean, there's going to be logic. And logic, as you wrote in your thing, there's a sense of, what did you write? You wrote something about logic is the
Minimal external standard.
minimal external standard. And I was interested in what that meant. Can you tell me, and then I'll go on to mine. Because I'm not sure what that meant.
Well, if I didn't put that there, it would sound like there was no legitimate external standard whatsoever, and I just didn't want to get cut saying there's no legitimate external standard whatsoever. I think logic is, at least, if something is illogical, then I think it's not truth. And I think that's fundamental. But I don't think logic is the only thing that we rely on when we decide that things just flat out aren't true, they're not reasonable.
I think that you, in your presentation, and as I said, I really do know the stakes that are involved in belief. And I guess that your comment that rational is something that evolves, I'd say that's really true, and it evolves based on evidence. I mean, we can say, for example, I can rationally posit that, well, here's a good example. Following from, say, Anselm to Aquinas to Descartes, Leibniz to Pascal, all